Lascaris is one of South Africa's most celebrated advertising icons. He literally started out from the boot of an old car. His book, Lessons from the Boot of a Car, traces a journey by an extraordinarily successful entrepreneurial Reg Lascaris, who joins us in studio now to tell us more about his book and his life. Reg, welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Leon. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, I tell you, it's so lovely to have you here and to read about your life, because you have got books from before, but there isn't a book that sort of talks about the man and the journey. Why now? Why did you decide to do this?
I've been in this business for a long time now, over 30 years, so I thought I'd better write down my experiences in the business, because it's one of those very exciting businesses where you have up days, you have down days, you have exciting days, you have tough days, and some very funny moments. And I've tried to put all the funny moments in the book as well. But it's also to encourage young entrepreneurs to start their own business, because when we started, the old story, we went to try and get some money from a bank, no money available. Eventually we borrowed from a friend who had enough money to give us to start the business, but we operated out of the boot of a very second-hand Toyota Corolla.
It's amazing.
And we used to say to the clients, no, don't come to us, because in fact we didn't have offices, we'll come to you. New philosophy. So we used to run around in our car and go and present out of the boot of our car.
Yeah, and that's, and I mean, the rest seriously is history, because I mean, from starting in the boot of a car to having a world-class advertising agency that almost changed the face of advertising in a country. I mean, we talk about 30 years ago when advertising, and you stood on a lot of toes in those days. I mean, because, I mean, in the apartheid era, you couldn't exactly advertise the way you guys were advertising.
No, we kind of took on the system quite a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, we were fortunate enough to have done the first election for South Africa. We worked with Madiba and the ANC on the first election, which was better than selling baked beans at the time.
Wow.
And we worked on the peace accord, and of course that's part of history. So we've had a lot to do with the country and its history. And again, I've learned so much out of that I thought I'd better write it all down and tell people what I learned. But you'll see some very funny parts as well. So it's a kind of bit of a biography, but at the same time trying to help young entrepreneurs. That's what I'm trying to do.
There was one part in the book that really shouted out for me. It was that you said you would work for free for 3 months. You did a stint in the music industry. You did a stint in the mining industry. I mean, like you say, working from the boot of your car. You talk about the fact of how things were, and that there wasn't that sense of entitlement that there is amongst the youth of today. And I think that's a big lesson to learn, is it?
Yeah, I think
start somewhere.
Yeah, you've got to start somewhere, and don't be scared to start. You know, all those young people out there, you've got to be an optimist. And I always say you have to be a tough-minded optimist, because you can start a business, you can borrow money somewhere, and you must just give it a go. And you know, if you're young, if you fail once, as I did a couple of times, as you'll see in the book, if you can just keep going, then you can achieve things, and touch wood, we did that.
Excellent. Where was the turning point for you? What was the point where you said, right, okay, now here we are, we've arrived?
Well, the first year we happened to have a few small bits of business, and we managed to survive. The second year we pitched 5, 6, 7 times and won absolutely nothing, and thought, do we give up? Do we keep going? What do we do? And in the end, let's just keep going. And eventually BMW came to us and said, we'd like you to do an ad to combat what Mercedes-Benz was doing with their car falling off the cliff.
Oh, yes.
And we did an ad called Beat the Benz, which was the first comparative ad in this country, which caused such a furore. Eventually the ad was banned, and then we went to court and we won the case, and we decided never to run it again, because it created such a furore, and it had a kind of a mystique around it. So we thought, let's just leave it, never run it again. And from that day, and then followed up by the mouse ad, and that's why the mouse is on the cover of the book, we kind of gained traction, and people got to know us, because we were completely unknown. Nobody knew who we were.
Yeah.
And slowly we started winning awards and winning at award shows. And fortunately, as they say in the classics, the rest is history.
It is. I mean, I remember that advert so well. Both of them, from the mouse to We Beat the Benz. I mean, that was just iconic in its time. It was a brilliant advert, even in today's day. And that's what's so nice about them, is that it's timeless. It's amazing how you get advertising and adverts that are timeless. And I mean, these are the ones that fall into that category. You spoke about some of the tough times, but you know, as much as those were those that stood out, there must have been some that weren't well received.
Oh, we've had a lot that weren't well received, because you always, as you say, remember the good times.
Yeah.
but we, as I say, had some tough times, some flops as well. But I think it's the old story. The more you practice, the better you get at things. And fortunately, we got better and better and built this business throughout Africa and the Middle East. And as I say, today but then we had a bad time. We had a bit of a crash because I think we took our eye off the ball. And you've got to be, you've got to keep your eye on the ball the whole time because there's so many good competitors out there trying to kind of eat at you and get your business. So you've got to be paranoid. And one of the lessons is be paranoid, worry.
Yeah.
And boy, do we worry all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you even describe yourself as a serial reject. I love that. I mean, you were rejected, you were saying, by every advertising agency that there was.
Yeah, every time I try to get in, a couple of guys said to me, you'll never make it in advertising.
Yeah.
You're the wrong type of guy for it.
Yeah. What made you carry on? Because that's the reality, is that there are people out there that will always stand in your way of success. But it's up to you to defy the odds and make it through. What drove you? Why did you believe that this was where you belonged?
Well, it seemed an interesting business. And when I started working for nothing, just to get into the business, I really, really enjoyed it because every day is different. Every challenge is different. Every client is different. And you learn so much about different kinds of businesses. So I wanted to be in advertising.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give up. So eventually, as I say, I worked for nothing. And then slowly got to love it and got passionate about it because, again, I think if you're going to start your own business, you must be passionate about what you're going to do. And I love what we do.
Yeah. And you still love what you do.
I still love what we do.
And that's what's so incredible about it.
Yeah.
Emotions and advertising.
Yes.
People always talk about advertising, whether it's a dying world, but it's not. I mean, advertising is in our psyche. But where do you see the future of advertising going?
Well, it's changed so much with the digital world because today you have such a quick reaction from the consumer. So the consumer is actually in control, not the advertiser anymore. So if you run an ad and the consumer doesn't like it, you'll know overnight. You'll get tweets, you'll see stuff on Facebook. So you've got to be even smarter now than you were in those days because, there you could just dish it out. But now they're coming back at you and telling you exactly what they think of you and of your advertising and of your product.
Yeah, and it's a good advert when people don't forward it on their PVR.
That's right.
That's the problem these days.
Exactly.
Like, let's just go past this. I don't want to watch this. But when they actually stop it and watch it, you've hit a good note.
But you make a hell of a good point because I think these days you've got to tell stories because a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you can tell a story, someone will follow you and follow the story. Yeah. So in the end, it's all about great ideas and great stories.
Awesome. Well, a great story is the book that's out in bookstores around the country now. I think this is a fantastic lesson for anybody, whether you're in advertising or any other industry. Lessons from the boot of a car. Reg Lascaris, he's in the psyche of all of us with his advertising, and I think just that picture on the cover, you know it so well. So best you read that book. Reg, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for visiting us this morning.
Lovely seeing you after all these years.
I know, and you too. Let's take